Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of Noxcast, an Equinox news recap podcast. I'm your host, Charlotte King, the managing executive editor of the Equinox.
I'm Nathan Hope, the news editor of the Equinox, and we're joined by our guest, Ryan Pacheco, the senior reporter.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Sure, you want to tell us a little bit about what you do as senior reporter?
Yeah, absolutely. So my job is to go out and, actually be on the ground getting the stories. As senior reporter, one of the things that I am responsible for is taking on a bit more of some of the stories. So I do, at the very least, 2 stories a week. A lot of the times I'm on the arts and entertainment section, but I try to diversify and get out and cover just about any topic that I find interesting or want to get good coverage on.
Sweet. Yeah, it's been great to have Ryan on as senior reporter and have somebody who can kind of be, still focusing on like field reporting, going out there, getting the interviews, but, just that we can count on to make sure that, you're getting the good sourcing and taking maybe some slightly bigger stories or, like you said, just more stories, because there's a lot that happens on a college campus and we got to make sure that we, at least try to have somebody on just about everything that goes down. But so one of Ryan's stories from this past week, we published a paper week of October 10th, as we do every week. And one of your big stories from this week was about the Monadnock International Film Festival, which recently occurred and showed at a few different venues, including right here on campus at the Putnam Theater. Do you want to give us some background on this?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a very interesting thing because what ended up happening was they partnered MONIF, the Monadnock International Film Festival, with the Keene State Film Society, and that sort of fostered this sort of bigger collaboration between our own student filmmaking community and the greater area, film festival, which brings in world-class filmmakers and all sorts of talented people from all over the world who perform their films here. And some of our students who are coming up with phenomenal works are being showcased alongside that, which is honestly just very incredible.
I think it's cool to see, that greater relationship being built between, the people who are organizing that and our film department that we have here, and the ability to kind of spotlight some films from, KSC students, KSC alumni, and just kind of get the chance to, greatly highlight our role, students' role, Keene State's role in the greater Monadnock region film community. One thing I also wanted to bring up is the fact that they actually reached out to you, isn't that right?
They did. I covered MONIF last year, the 11th annual festival, and Dee Fitzgerald reached out to me and asked if we could get some coverage on this because they very much want people to know about what they've got going on, all the exciting things that they've put together, and they wanted to make sure that was covered so that the community can know about it. I was very flattered.
Yeah, I think that's definitely representative of one of the things that, we want to see of a senior reporter definitely is like building those connections to the point where, people in those areas and, in particularly arts and entertainment spaces start to get to know you as much as you know them. So that was really cool to see. And I wanted to ask a little bit about, since you are the senior reporter, what you feel like you gain out of reporting and why you like doing it so much.
Every single week when we go into our Monday meeting and we're coming up with the stories that we're going to do and we're figuring out what our assignment's going to be, I never know from week to week what offices I'm going to go into, what events I'm going to cover, all these different fascinating and just wonderful, epic people, really, that you're going to have a chance to talk to. And the one thing that I love the most about it is, 9 times out of 10, you're talking to people that are very passionate about what it is that they're doing. And there's something so amazing about just having the chance to listen to somebody talk about something that they poured all their time, labor of love kind of thing. And to me, that's just an amazing experience. I've had the chance to talk to fascinating political scientists, professors that have an amazing history behind them. I've been able to attend amazing shows. Last year, I actually managed to end up seeing a performance by the New Hampshire Philharmonic and got to see Mahler's Symphony No. 2, which was an absolutely enchanting experience. And then a couple days later, I was interviewing a pop punk band. You never know who you're going to meet, what kind of experiences you're going to have. And in my case, this is a lot of stuff that I probably never would have been exposed to otherwise. And it's part of my job to go out and have these experiences, learn it, and then report that back to the community. You can't beat it, really. The other thing I want to add, too, is it's not just about talking to people that are, interesting and have something fun to say, but at the same time, you're also providing a service. You're getting information out there about things that a lot of the times, people don't really know about. Like I covered a story a few weeks ago about these new kits that Campus Safety has been distributing alongside defibrillators. And these things can become very life-saving in a situation where there's a medical emergency and you just don't have the time to wait for an ambulance or somebody to show up. There's something also that's just very rewarding about being able to provide that information and make sure that people are armed with it so that they can, I know it sounds cliche, but be better informed, which is, I guess, all of our jobs.
All right, I think we're ready to move into the rest of our top stories from this week, starting with news. Top story in news this week is about the Dean's List birth name policy and some of the, confusion that has arisen from that, and some of the different reactions and ways that people are trying to move forward in response to that. So, Nate, this is your article if you want to take it away.
Yeah, for sure. So the Dean's List naming policy is something that I had heard about initially last fall, also in early October. So this is, kind of after a full year and going back to it. But at a Keene State Senate meeting last October, they had discussed, the academic policy committee there, they had discussed avenues to which that they could change the Dean's List policy, because currently you can only display birth name or opt out. The opt-out is actually what they decided to add, because at the time they had said that the justification was they were told by legal counsel, I believe, that state law had prevented them from changing it because the Dean's List is a transcript-related academic document. So at the time, that was sort of a interesting thing, because there's all these different aspects of campus where chosen name is the norm, and it's been a thing since 2015 in the student information system, the Outlook directory. And I wanted to do a follow-up on that to see if there's any movement on that, or if there's anything else there. And so I had the ability to talk to an affected student who did have to opt out of being listed on the Dean's List due to the discomfort that comes from that. As well as I talked to the APC chair again, and had followed up about if there is a state law there. And what I had found is, through my conversation with him, and they submitted a question to UNH about this as well, they had said, we aren't aware of any law about the birth name being required. We use it at UNH. They said, we use it because it's best practice from the AACRAO, which is the American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers. So it was definitely surprising to find out that there wasn't a law on the books after this being the justification, obviously. I wanted to get that information out there because a lot of people don't know. There was a lot of miscommunication on the college's side about this policy, about if you can change it, if they can change it, and it created a lot of confusion for people. So that was something that I was glad to get out there and work on, and a lot of people don't know why this was the case. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we will probably inevitably kind of combine this a little bit with our editorial, because we did also focus our editorial this week, Opinions Top Story, about this. But so, yeah, I did want to kind of hit on an aspect of I know you've been working on looking into this for a while. What is it like to kind of go through this process and now you know, see the story come to fruition and kind of with where it ended up with the kind of plot twist that we ended up finding?
Yeah, I mean, I had done some research at the time about it, looking for this law, because on paper it might seem like something that does make sense. An academic transcript, there might be some sort of older law that talks about, oh well, it would be a false representation to not put your legal name. So that was my thought: is, well, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I didn't find anything at the time, which is why I wanted to follow up, in case I was missing something, really. Um, but when I had talked to the Academic Policy Committee chair, Greg Nuff, he had said that through his own research, he also wasn't able to find a law in the books other than just a law that said schools have to keep record of the student's legal name. Just they have to keep a record of it. They don't have to use it. So it was definitely sort of an interesting turnaround there, coming from something like, this is impossible to change, to, wait a second, this is possible to change, and seemingly all it took is a little bit of research. And so they also do have a chosen name work group, which is working on reviewing policies across the board on campus in relation to chosen versus legal names. So that's, some of the progress that they're trying to start here and do some work on that. But it was definitely a different type of story, and I think I'm glad that I definitely went to that Keene State Senate meeting. It seems like, probably from the outside looking in, that these meetings are boring, or they don't discuss anything that really means anything to students, but it's actually quite the opposite, as you can see now.
I just think that goes to show, it's a perfect example of how you never know where your next story is going to come from. It can be something as simple as, like you said, a meeting where there's only one person, but you just look a little bit deeper and you can find a huge story under it, something to really dig your teeth into and just look into and find something that you never would have expected to be there.
It is definitely cool to be able to take that deeper look into the topic. I do think that with regards to, again, I keep calling it like the plot twist that we found with this. I was really shocked when you updated me about what you had found while looking into this. And in our editorial, we kind of go into the fact that it's really a strange situation and weird to think about how things like this get started. This idea that there was like a legal, a legal block that was keeping the college from changing this policy. But it's, I think, a testament to the importance of journalism like what you did here to clarify these misunderstandings that people have about something as important as a college policy that affects, who knows how many students on this campus, who knows how many students across potentially the university system. And so it is, I think, deeply unfortunate, the position that people who have a chosen name that they use over their legal name are put in by this policy. But I suppose all we can do now is hope that these groups and committees can, interact and work together efficiently to try and come up with a better solution for those people.
Yeah, for sure. And this also ended up being our editorial topic, and we kind of delved into why this could bring about, this could be an issue for any number of students, not just transgender and gender nonconforming students, but anybody who has had to change their name for any number of reasons, which could be, if their first name is, they were named after an abusive family member or something like that. Something, just an example of people who their legal name brings them discomfort and brings them, harmful thoughts. So it was really unfortunate from from my perspective to see how it affected the person that I had interviewed, and not just him, any number of students as well. But I think this is an example also of, during our editorial discussions, the importance of having different voices, because within the discussion, our student life editor, Orion, being someone who could be directly affected by it, and then you, Charlotte, also being affected by it, having those different voices who can really speak to the more personal aspect of why this matters. And it was really sort of, so I was sort of taken aback by just hearing that more personal opinion about it, rather than just me saying, as a cisgender man, like that seems pretty, messed up. But yeah, I think it was a really good discussion that we had about it. And I would be remiss not to mention also the headline, of course, of the editorial, listing in the name, that I had come up with, going off of the Rage Against the Machine song, "Killing in the Name." So I'm pretty happy that made it through as well.
Yeah, we had some discussion during layout about whether or not that could make it into the final paper. Is everybody going to get this reference? Is there any potential way this could be misconstrued? But we ended up, after some real back and forth, we ended up deciding that that we did think the reference was probably still well known enough for people to pick up on what we were trying to say. And also just that, when you look at a band like Rage Against the Machine and that song and the sort of importance of the messaging, obviously we're talking about a very different topic here in our editorial, but there is sort of that shared sentiment of kind of pushing back against things that many students here might not feel are fair, or maybe handled with the most effectiveness or care for issues like, again, whether it's the issues that transgender and gender nonconforming students face, or any number of reasons why somebody might have a preferred name, chosen name. We thought that there was room for, again, that kind of shared sentiment and shared idea, and so we did end up going with that, much to Nate's excitement.
I didn't really know too much about this going in, and I don't really want to comment on something that I didn't really have the chance to research ahead of time myself, but I think that just once again goes to show the importance of having people out there that are getting us this information, so that people like myself, who would not have otherwise known about that, have the chance to learn about this.
All right, I think we can move on to our region state top story for this week. This is a story from the Keene Sentinel about how the old site of the Roosevelt School is slated to be turned into affordable housing, and there was just recently more federal funds which were approved to go into that project, the Roosevelt Project.
You can go.
Well, I obviously think that that's, just one of many great things that can be done to help fix this problem. And it's just very encouraging to see that we are coming up with solutions like this and actually trying to tackle this instead of just throwing around rhetoric.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty undeniable that there is an affordable housing crisis in New Hampshire and other parts of the country as well, but particularly here, and in the region, specifically the Monadnock region. You can't expect people to be able to stay in the state and in the region and bolster the workforce if they don't have a place to live in the first place. So I think that's been a big barrier for employment opportunities, even at the college. When I've interviewed some folks about filling vacancies of positions, part of the concerns that they bring up is, we can't have a higher number of people in those pools because there's concerns about, I don't know if I'll be able to have, a house there and really settle down. So I think it's a good thing to have more affordable housing there, and especially in a building, that hasn't gotten, real use in a while, really transforming that into something that can be a real benefit to the community. It's a great thing. And I think there needs to be more of it. I think people shouldn't be scared of having, affordable housing in the community. It makes, the workforce stronger. It makes the community stronger. I think brings more people in. There's no real downside, in my opinion, to doing more of it. And I think there's just too many regulations and red tape to actually doing more. So I think this is a good first step, and I look forward to more of it.
And it just reminds me of, like, you always see buildings that are out of use, and I think the first thought that comes to a lot of people's minds is there's such a big housing crisis going on, and so many of these buildings are being unused. And it's nice to see somebody actually manifesting that into that building being used for a good purpose.
Yeah, and I think definitely with affordable housing, it often serves to lift the entire community up. People maybe sometimes get caught up on the idea that affordable housing is for a certain subsection of the community, and especially if that involves tax money to develop it, people can sometimes have some scrambled feelings there. But I do think that ultimately, long term, affordable housing projects like this will only ever serve to, like Nate was saying, bolster the workforce and just overall improve the unity and quality of the community that we exist in. And I do think that as well, with any school, you'll have lots of people who have connections to it, who feel some type of, whether it's nostalgia or just any type of emotional connection to it. But ultimately, I think that one of the most respectful things that can happen to any plot of land that's ever served any purpose is to continue to give it purpose. And so I think that's exactly what a lot of people are aiming to do with the Roosevelt School site. And I think that is commendable. All right, I think we can now move to our top student life story of the week, which was a event coverage story on the Walk to End Alzheimer's, which is an annual thing. Happened on October 5th, so recently. Nate, did you want to talk about this?
Yeah, it's an annual event that's been held at the college's Fifth Squad for some time, and serves as an awareness event. It's a good event and kind of, more emotional one, but also, trying to lift up and trying to have some optimism about the future and the research being done and some of the looking for medications and ways to prevent it in the future going forward. There's definitely more of a sense of optimism going forward, not just, sadness about how this has impacted families. And I think also in terms of the student participation, it's hard not to mention that for some time now, actually, there's been a large participation in the Greek life community. They've come out and shown their support. So that's good to see them doing some real work in the community there. And, for these causes, it's a good thing. Yeah.
And I agree 100% on the hope and the inspiration it gives. Anybody that's, lost a loved one or knows somebody that knows what a heartbreaking and frustrating experience it is to watch that happen or go through it as well, obviously. But, events like this that not only get people out to make it more visible, but also to say, don't forget, we're trying our best to actually bring about change. We are working towards this, and this might not be a problem someday if we all keep maintaining this energy and working towards it. I think that's very inspiring, and I think it's very healing for a lot of people to see as well.
Yeah, I think that there's a real weight that something like an event where people come out and they're around campus, visible and proudly demonstrating that they care. I think there's a real power to that for anybody on campus who does know somebody who is struggling with these conditions, to be able to look around and see people, and yeah, maybe people they know, whether it's from just around campus or from Greek life, from you know being in the Keene State community in one way or another, see people that they know showing up to express that support and that solidarity, and just remember, I like the point that we are working to fix this, and nobody knows how long that might take, but I think that events like this serve to demonstrate that we won't stop trying until we get there. And I think that that's a really beautiful community spirit to have. And now I think we can move on to our top sports story of the week, which is a little profile type deal about one of our esports players, Yusea Arezzo, who is a student from Uruguay, and talking a little bit about some of the draws of the esports team here at Keene State, as well as some of the challenges that she's faced so far coming to New England.
Yeah, I think it was definitely interesting because I had done a little esports preview at the start of the year, and on their Instagram they had posted some of their incoming first-year students, and I noticed that they had brought in a student from Uruguay, which I think is an awesome thing. Kind of shows already, sort of in its first full year, esports' ability to bring in students from places you might not expect, because people around the world play video games, and I think there is a real draw to a place like Keene State, where we're kind of on the early stages of really getting the ball rolling on esports. It seems like she's excelling in it and enjoying it. So I think it's great to see, and I'm glad whenever we can highlight any in particular student or student athlete or just anyone to make them feel seen and make them feel appreciated, especially coming on early on as being a first year. So I think it was an awesome thing.
I couldn't personally imagine how challenging it must be, not only navigating the language barrier, but being thousands of miles away from your own home. And I think it just sort of speaks to, we're obviously doing something right here if our esports program is attracting people to make that journey, face those challenges, and, give their talents to our school. I think it's something that we should be grateful for, and I think it really speaks to the powers of some of the programs that we're doing here.
Yeah, I think it's been great, giving her the opportunity to kind of shine on the Valorant team. And, Coach Druin had a lot of really positive things to say about her and just the connection that she's been able to make with the rest of the team and the esports program. And so, like Nate said, I think it's great when we get to spotlight somebody who's really proving to be a shining star in any facet, but especially with something that's still kind of new and experimental like esports. But they've been doing really good, and so it's awesome, and I can't wait to see where they go next. And with that, I think that concludes the second episode of Noxcast. Thank you very much for watching our little news recap. I'd also like to give a special shout out to the composer of the music for Noxcast, our very own Equinox alum, Zach Keenan, as well as the designer of the Noxcast graphic, our very own Equinox staffer, Elijah Fisher. Until next time, I've been your host, Charlotte King.
I've been Nathan Hope, and thank you to our guest, Ryan Pacheco, for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me on.